Hey, everybody. This is the You're Doing Great Mom podcast. I'm Dr. Marianne Shiozawa, and this is episode 30.
And my friend said, I'll give you a ride tomorrow. And I said, to where? And he goes, to that chiropractor. And I said, no, I'm not going. He says, why not? And I said, why would I go? And he goes, I don't know. What else you doing? And I said, have you ever been to a chiropractor? And he said, no. And I said, yeah, you heard anything good about it? He goes, not much, nothing good. But he says, if it was me and I was dying like you are, Keith, what wouldn't you do? I'd go see a damn witch doctor if I had nothing else to do. And he says, and you don't. You're sitting at home waiting to throw up. And I went, okay, good point.
Today, I'm speaking with Keith Wassung. Keith isn't a chiropractor by trade, but his heart and soul are more connected with the chiropractic philosophy than most of the chiropractors in the world. He's been living the chiropractic lifestyle for over 30 years, teaching and selling the chiropractic message through his chiropractic business. If you're a chiropractor listening to this and you haven't heard of Keith, you have to check out his website. Listen for the details at the end of the episode. Keith's story of how he was a championship weightlifter, healthy and strong, in the military, in the Navy, and then gradually becoming so sick that he was actually preparing to die. I was completely blown away by his story and how he regained his health. Yes, chiropractic was at the center of that. And now, living in Florida, Keith has raised 6 children, and he shares what it's like being a family man, a husband, a multiple business owner, and the most passionate chiropractic advocate in the world. I've bought several of his products and I use them every day. Keith is awesome, and it was an honor to have him on my podcast. Enjoy.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Good morning.
So about 4 o'clock over there?
Yeah, it's 4 o'clock. Yeah.
Good.
So thanks so much for doing this.
Sure.
I really, really appreciate it. Where are you located again?
Orlando, Florida, on the East Coast.
Oh, nice. Wow.
I'm 15 minutes from Disney World.
15 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you have, how many kids do you have?
I have 6. We have 2 left at home. So 4 are grown and gone. 2 left at home, 2 twins that are 13 going on 14.
Wow. That's amazing. So it's probably helpful that you live next to Disney World.
Well, we just moved here about 2 years ago.
Oh,
we
okay.
lived in Charleston, South Carolina for, 30 years and relocated down here, honestly, to be closer to family. My wife's from here, and I have a lot of little nieces and nephews. And like my brother and sister, I didn't grow up around their nieces and nephews. I was gone. They're all young adults now, and so she has younger brothers that have little kids, and it's just close to family.
Yeah.
So we love it here. We absolutely love it.
Where did you move from again?
Charleston, South Carolina, on the East Coast.
Yeah, nice. Because I'm from New York, and
okay, whereabouts?
Upper West. I'm Upper West Side. I grew up in New Jersey, just near New York City. But I lived there and practiced there for a little over 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and when I was at school at Life University in Georgia, I went to, that's where I traveled a lot around the South, so I visited Charleston, which is a great city, by the way. It's really nice, isn't it?
It's a great city to visit.
Are you where were you born? Were you born there?
Nebraska. Oh, no, not Bunch. Grew up in the Midwest, grew up on a farm. Love the openness.
Yeah.
Even though we live in Orlando, we're western part of Orlando, and we've got like our own spread, and the neighbors aren't close, and have our own little compound, which I love.
Oh my gosh.
Best neighbors are neighbors unseen. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Nebraska. I've never been there before. To me it sounds so foreign to me. Actually, it's.
That's a pretty good word for it.
Yeah.
Well, think about it. How many people are in New York City? Like 8 million? Is it
something like that? Yeah.
Okay, in the entire state of Nebraska, which is a large state, there's 1.5 million.
1.5 in
when they have a home football game, the stadium becomes the 3rd largest city in the state. So it's just a lot of little small towns. You got Lincoln and Omaha, but if you've seen one part of it, you've seen it all. It's just flat and Yeah, flat farmland, a lot of cows, a lot of pigs, a lot of
Yeah.
corn.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. To me, it sounds like I'd like to visit it. It just sounds actually kind of beautiful because I know that the Midwest is beautiful. I mean, my family moved to Minnesota, like Minneapolis, when right after I graduated from high school, and I mean, I think the Midwest is it's beautiful. It's so huge.
It is.
So yeah. Okay, so you're the first father. So
Oh, wow.
all the
Maybe the last when you hear some of my opinions and thoughts on things. So
oh God, are you this? You're an expert. You're like, you've been around. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
okay.
Cool. You have 6 children.
Correct.
And did you always know that you wanted to be a father?
Sure.
Do you remember when you first started to think about fatherhood?
Probably in about the second grade. I was having a discussion with this friend of mine. His name was Steven, and we were talking about it. We were talking about being grandparents then,
Really?
and just how cool it was, and not so much. I came from a solid Midwestern, family background. My parents were older. I was the baby of the family. We were all adopted. All 3 of us kids were adopted. My parents couldn't have children, and so we came from diverse. We were all babies when we were adopted, but we're all quite different. But we had what I consider a good solid family. I grew up with people that always talked about I was a dysfunctional family, and my dad did this, my dad did that, and I kind of remember thinking my dad does the same stuff. It doesn't seem to bother me. I mean, I don't let it get to me. He's not perfect by any means.
Right.
Did his best, provided, did things, and I think part of it was that there were things we didn't always get along. We probably got along better as when I was a kid or a boy than I did as an adult. He never appreciated the chiropractic. He used to, in fact, I'd go visit him and Mom. And he'd go, so you're still doing that, because chiropractic to me is a sideline. It's just a passion. I'm in banking and things like that.
Oh, really?
And he'd go, yeah, that's it's a side hobby, passion, type for me. But he'd go, he goes, you're still doing that chiropractic stuff? And I go, yeah. He goes, yeah. So it's still legal. They haven't outlawed it yet. And he's just the old school.
Oh, wow.
Every negative thing about chiropractic he probably came up with. There's been like 8 documented cases of cervical manipulation associated with death by stroke. Dad went to high school with 9 of the guys. Knew him personally. I mean, he was Archie Bunker. That was his mentality back then. And I gave up long ago, even trying to get through to him. And so we got along better as when I was a kid. But I remember wanting to be a father just because I went, you know what, I can do better. There's things I can do better. And so that's what Steve and I would talk about, our parents and how we would do things a little different. And by the way, I've kept a journal since I was 7 or 8 years old. And I used to write down, when I'm a parent, I'll never. And you know what? I've stuck to that for the most part.
Really?
There were things I'd go back and I'd read it. I'd go, you know what? I'll never do this. I'll never do that. I'll make sure that I do this. And I have for the most part, So some of the things I didn't like about my parents, when I say didn't like about them, things I didn't like about what they did, yeah. I made notes along the way. So
awesome. Can you think about just give me one thing, like an example in that
Okay.
journal?
I would say I would have this wild dream. Okay. I would have this wild ambition. I'd come home and say, you know what? I'm going to be whatever. I'm going to cure cancer. I remember thinking that I'm going to find the cure for cancer. Now I was a little older. I was about 11 or 12, and Dad just immediately scoffed at it. Just immediately, dismissed it. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Da 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 da. Mm-hmm. And whereas now my kid, and honestly, that's a pretty dumb thing for an 11-year-old to say. not that it's dumb, but you shouldn't say that without sort of backing it. So when I have my kids make outlandish, this is what I'm going to do, I say, great, let's sit down, pen and paper, and let's talk about how you're going to accomplish that. And I may get them through a series of action steps, and I force them to do it. not force them, but, get them to do it. They realize that maybe that's not quite the thing they want to do, or maybe they realize, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And I'm Doc, I'm not a big fan of people broadcasting what they're going to do before they do it. I see chiropractors constantly on Facebook going, I got some project and it's going to change everything. And then it never seems to manifest.
Yeah.
I'd rather do it and then come back. I don't know if they're trying to get attention. I don't know if they're trying to get praise. Oh yeah, that's great. So that's one thing my dad especially would put that down, would make fun of me, would mock me. Whereas the kids, I sort of force them to mock themselves and go, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Or, you know what? It's one thing, to say I'm going to be in the NBA. It's another to say, you know what? I want to make the high school basketball team. And you start realizing that you can have those goals and dreams, but to wish out loud with any sort of a plan, I think it hurts people. I really do. And so that's one thing from my journal that I've taught my kids. I never make fun of them. I never put them down. I never say you can't do it. And some of the things have manifested. Some of the things, I remember my oldest daughter at age 8 wanted to be a psychiatric nurse, in private practice. Mm-hmm. Guess what? Just started her own practice 3 weeks ago. And she created an action plan and she went right to it.
Wow,
I've got another
awesome.
daughter that's on to being an artist, same kind of thing. So that's one example of that, because I remember being hurt by it, being hurt that, he would laugh at me. So, and laugh is not a good word, not support,
Yeah. It's also the attitude, it's like, it's almost what he didn't say in his body language, maybe.
Sure. And he grew up in that generation, the World War II generation, that, feelings and sharing and this and that wasn't really part of the DNA, so to speak.
Yeah.
It wasn't a touchy-feely household per se.
Yeah. So can you just, before we keep going into more stories about fatherhood, can you just talk about who you are and what you do? And well, I mean, we met through, your name is so well known in our profession in chiropractic. So so it's like before I even really got in touch with you, I just knew who you were. Do you know what I mean? And so,
sure.
But I was really looking forward to hearing your story. And you can just tell like the basic facts, like how old are you and where you're from, and then how you got into chiropractic.
Sure. It is cool having been around this for years. We started with a new chiropractic office, probably about 2 months ago, and young guys, maybe 3-4 years in practice. And as I was going through the report of findings, the first gentleman looked at me and he goes, "I got to tell you something." He says, "My dad was a chiropractor. He used to take me to DE. I saw you when I was 10 years old speak at DE." He goes, "It's incredible to have you here." And I'm like, "Well, gosh, that's humbling." Yeah, I'll tell you real quick. And I'll try to do it quick. I grew up in Nebraska, left home in 1982, joined the Navy, joined the U.S. Submarine Force. I have an uncle and a cousin that were in the submarines, and they always raved about it and always appealed to me. Ended up on the East Coast, where I began my submarine career. I was going to school at nights. I was weight training at nights. I was a competitive weightlifter. Ended up winning the Navy and the Armed Forces heavyweight weightlifting championships. That became my job in a sense. That's what I did. Mm-hmm. Toured nationally, internationally, won national titles. At one time, held every drug-free lifting record in the U.S.
Oh, really?
And was on magazine covers, was interviewed, was I call it a minor celebrity, whatever that means. This is long internet. And people knew I was, and especially in that era where the steroids, and still is, were just dominating, lifting and bodybuilding. I was, and I kind of was one of the early people that put together the drug-free associations where guys and gals could compete without the drugs and that. And I still support those organizations to this day. Mm-hmm. I came back in 1986 from California from a weightlifting tour, and I started developing some sinus headaches. And again, not a big deal, but sinus headaches. I hadn't had a hint of a health problem, growing up. And so I go down to the Navy dispensary, and they gave me a couple of pills and said, go home, this will clear it up, and it did. Sinus headache's gone, but those began making me very nauseous and causing diarrhea. So I go back, and they said, we expected that. Here's 2 drugs for the nausea and the diarrhea. Now I'm on 4. Well, the diarrhea cleared right up, but now I started having nosebleeds. Well, they gave me a drug for that.
Nice.
Now I'm up to 5. Then next thing you know, my ears are ringing. They gave me a drug for that. Next thing you know, I'm dehydrated. They gave me a drug for that. Now I'm up to 11 drugs. Got severely dehydrated, had to rush me to the hospital and put an IV in me. Gave me more drugs for that. Now I'm up to 13. It wasn't that I felt bad, I just didn't feel right. And I was sitting watching TV with some roommates and Navy friends, and a friend of mine looked over, and he said, Keith, are you okay? Now, I didn't feel it. I just kind of like in a fog. And I said, no, I'm not okay. And he goes, I'm taking you to the hospital right now. And I said, okay. And it made no sense because nothing was going on. I was just kind of sitting there in a fog. He takes me to the hospital, driving 100 miles an hour. He liked to drive fast. I think that was his excuse to take me. And we walked into the ER, and I collapsed.
Oh, wow.
And I woke up 2-3 days later, and they poked and prodded and did all kinds of things, injected something in the back of my neck. Lost my hearing in my left ear, 80%. My hair fell out, neither of which have really come back. And my health just began to rapidly deteriorate, which had already started from that initial sinus headaches. Within 3 weeks, I'm taking 18 different drugs a day. I'm taking about 70 pills in a 24-hour period. And I went from this lean, in shape, 215-pound athlete down to about 160. My skin changed. It was to a gray color. I couldn't keep food down. I lived on applesauce. And this was my existence for about the next 16 months. I was completely disabled. They would send people into my home. I couldn't keep eating applesauce. I dry heaves constantly. And I had access to some of the best medical doctors in the country. I saw President Reagan's private physician over in Bethesda, Maryland, and they just continued to chase symptoms with drugs. So finally, about a year and a half, maybe less than that, 16 months after this started, I met with my medical team, who was doing everything possible they could. God bless them, they were doing really, really to the best of their knowledge. And they looked at me and said, Keith, your WBCs are down, your immune system's failing. We don't see you making it till end of the year. And this would have been, May, June, something like that, of 87.
Oh my God.
And they said, you're going to die. We suggest you get your affairs in order.
Really?
And I was ready to go. Oh, yeah, I was ready to go. It was a miserable existence.
How old were you?
I would have been, in 87, I would have been 22 going on 23.
And they were telling you that you were going to die.
Yeah, they said, we don't know how long, but you probably got 6 months at that. And I was just, I spent from November through that May, they'd given me a new round of medication, and I would sleep in the bathroom at night with 2 or 3 pillows. I'd build a little nest between the toilet and the bathtub because the dry heaves would start, and I couldn't make it I didn't have the energy to get to the toilet in time. And I would carry a red bucket around with me because I was always throwing up. And it was, the dry heaves would last 6-7 hours sometimes, and I couldn't sleep. And so when they said you're going to die, I went, okay, I don't remember much of that year, to be honest with you. And I'm a football nut growing up in Nebraska. I can go back to 1969 through last year and tell you where they went to the bowl. I can remember literally every game. I would come back from submarine patrols and go get copies of the games and watch them. I just have it in my brain. That whole year, I don't remember it. I don't remember the season. I don't remember movies that came. It's like just a fog in my brain. So anyway, I was not married. I no kids or anything like that. So I got my affairs in order, went and saw an attorney, and I didn't have a lot of assets, but I had a few things, a truck and things like that. And I had a friend drive me, same guy, to the mall to buy Christmas gifts for my family, knowing I wasn't going to be alive in 6 months, or, good idea. And I spent the entire day buying maybe 4 or 5 gifts, mom, dad, brother, sister. And the last store was like a B. Dalton's, Walton Books type bookstore. And I bought my mom a hardback copy of The Hiding Place, Corrie ten Boom, which she'd always wanted to read. And then I bought a small journal, and I was going to keep that journal in addition to the journal I had that I'd grown up with for my mom. and a guy gets behind me in the checkout line, and I was struggling badly. I mean, like I said, I couldn't walk more than 10 feet without sitting down. I was just exhausting. And he said, "Are you okay?" "Okay, yeah, I'm fine." And he followed me out to the little food court where I was waiting for my ride. And he said, "What's wrong with you?" Now, understand something. I was well known in Charleston, and people saw, the people would run into me. They'd say, "What's going on with you?" And, rumors fly. He's got steroid withdrawal. He's got cancer. This was right around the HIV/AIDS thing. He's got AIDS. He's everything in the world. He's a steroid dealer. I mean, the wounded dog, the pack turns on him. And you get tired of telling your story. And this guy wouldn't leave me alone. And so I finally broke down and told him the story. And he says, "You should come to my office. I'm a chiropractor." Now, honestly, Dr. Mariana probably laughed for the first time in a year and a half. And I said, "Yeah, you didn't pay attention. I got internal issues. My immune system's failing." And he goes, "Keith, there's a lot more to chiropractic than what you think." Now, again, I grew up with a negative dad Dad tell us how bad chiropractic was when I was growing up. I mean, he'd tell us what a scam it was. And
really?
I heard the horror stories, And it was just funny because he had a bad back. And I said, "I know I don't look it, but I'm something of a health expert. I've written magazines. I've been in muscle and fitness. I've been in all these things. If there was more to chiropractic, I'd know about it." Pretty arrogant statement. And he wouldn't leave me alone. So I finally lied to him and said, "Yeah, I'll come to your office tomorrow." What he was doing, he had an office right across the street from the mall, and he was in the bookstore hunting patients. He'd hang out. He was brand new in practice. Second, third week, he'd hang out in the health section and wait for somebody to pick up a book on health, and he'd pounce on them, or he'd leave his cards in there. Yeah. And so he saw me. He didn't know what to make of me, but he knew chiropractic could potentially be a benefit. And so just to get rid of him, I said, "Yeah, I'll be there tomorrow." And he gave me his card and 1:00 and this and that. And my friend said, I'll give you a ride tomorrow. And I said, "To where?" And he goes, "To that chiropractor." And I said, "No, I'm not going." He says, "Why not?" And I said, "Why would I go?" And he goes, "I don't know. What else you doing?" And I said, "Have you ever been to a chiropractor?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Yeah, you heard anything good about it?" He goes, "Not much, nothing good." But he says, "If it was me and I was dying like you are, Keith, what wouldn't you do? I'd go see a damn witch doctor if I had nothing else to do." And he says, "And you don't. You're sitting at home waiting to throw up." And I went, "Okay, good point." So he drives me in the next day, and guy just yak. He still is, and he adjusts me. He examined me. He adjusts me, and he makes me rest. And I felt no different. In fact, I was exhausted by sitting there listening to him, and it didn't. And he sends me home and says, "I'll see you tomorrow." And I'm thinking, "Yeah, you'll never see me again." And I go home and I eat my apples. I lived on applesauce. That's all I ate.
Right.
And went to bed. And I woke up the next day, not in pain, but stiff and sore from head to toe. Like you do a workout the first time and you're just kind of that muscle soreness in the neck. And I remember thinking, you know what? That's the scam. Dad was right. Chiropractors, they hurt you the first day. Now watch, he's going to fix me today. And I was mad because that's the last thing I needed. And I went in, I took a shower and got dressed, and I'm just cussing out this guy. And I walked in the kitchen to eat my breakfast, my applesauce. And I'll never forget this. It's been 31 plus years. I walked in that kitchen and I stopped, dead in my tracks. And three things just hit me. Number one, I had just slept through the night, 8 straight hours for the first time in a year and a half. I had slept more than 2 hours straight. 2 hours would have been a dream. It was more like 30 minutes at a time. I slept. Number two, I had just showered, brushed my teeth, and gotten dressed. Normally, I would have to sit in the chair in the living room for an hour to recover from the rigors of taking a shower. That's how weak I was. And number three, I was legitimately hungry for the first time in a year. And I walked over, and I'm so applesauce is banned in our house, by the way. I still don't eat it. And I got a few eggs out, and I soft boiled them. I figured, you know what? I knew I was going to throw up, but at least the egg, soft boiled eggs not too bad. And I soft boiled some eggs, and I ate them. Got my red bucket, and I sat in the chair waiting to throw up, and it never happened. I remember going, interesting. I think I'll give this another shot. So I went back, and he checked and adjusted me again, and he continued to do so. And you know what? Over the next couple of weeks, it wasn't like the heavens parted and the hand of God came down. But you know what? Every day my ADLs got better. Every day energy was coming back. I'm sleeping. I remember eating a sliced tomato for the first time. And just, it was like candy to a kid. I remember eating cottage cheese, which I absolutely love. Simple. My stomach was messed up just from not eating stuff. So there was still some diarrhea and things like that. But stopped taking some of the medication on my own. I eventually met with the medical team, and I had one of the top MDs in the hospital literally whisper in my ear, "I'm not telling you this because I would get in trouble. Flush the meds, flush them." And within a week, I'm walking around I'm going to get my mail. I couldn't do that. I remember getting in the truck and driving after about 2 weeks. And about 3-4 weeks into this, I put my uniform on and showed back up at the Navy office saying reporting for duty. They thought I was going to die. They thought that they were coming to my funeral. Within 6 weeks, I'm back in the gym training, little green 3-pound weights. Inside of about 8 months, I'm competing again and breaking every record before. And I remember asking my chiropractor, "What did you do to me?" And he gave me this explanation. It didn't land. And I began searching and researching. And I would go to other chiropractors, like their workshops, and all of their workshops were like ergonomic, like what kind of pillow, bend with your knees, drink water. Oh, your spine's important too. They didn't really get into the essence of the chiropractic message. And so I started self-studying. I'd get out of work at 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was still on light duty. I'd go down to the university in Charleston, the medical library, and I'd be in there until they closed at 11 o'clock at night, just studying neurology journals, studying. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have Google, and reading textbooks. And I eventually got hold of some green books off this doctor's shelf, which he'd never read. He just had them for wall decor. And I started reading the early collections of B.J. Palmer. And I started seeing that in the green books that it was the philosophy. This is why the body works the way it does. And this is why the body always works the way it does. In the physiology, the Harrisons, the Guytons, the Marib, I saw how the body works. And when you combine the philosophy and the physiology, you've got this unbeatable message. And when it hit me, I went, how did I miss this? How did I get a college degree and I'd never heard the term subluxation? How is it I put all this together? And so I just vowed back then, 31 years ago, that I was going to spend my life sharing this message. And I own a couple of businesses, but my background's in banking and finance, and I'm a private investor. But I do, and I don't do as many as I used to, but from about 91 to about 2009, I averaged about 300 lectures out in a year in the public arena, at universities, churches, schools, public centers, businesses, medical conferences, pre-med, you name it. Just doing the chiropractic message. And along the way, I found all these incredible resources that were just buried in these neurology journals, and I started, utilizing these handouts because I'm a patient. What credibility do I have? The credibility is in the documentation. And pretty soon in 91, 92, I started illustrating it, putting little pictures, and I started getting calls from chiropractors saying, "Can we buy this from you?" I didn't buy it. I had no clue. And I saw a lot of the literature that was in chiropractic offices, and I thought it was horrible. I really thought that could do better. And so in an attempt to create materials to validate the lectures, I started creating tools that eventually started selling, and it worked out really well because it funds my work. And I've never taken a dime from anyone. I've never asked for anything. It's just totally self-funding, and I'm still that way today. And so that's kind of a long-winded approach. I still do the other things. I take products to market. I'm kind of like a poor man's Shark Tank, so to speak. I still do the investment advising and some other consulting, and I have some books out and things like that. But the chiropractic thing is just a cause, it's a passion. People need to know. I felt cheated. How did I go through all my education? How did I go through all my coaches? How did I go through all my military officers? And none of them had any inkling what health really was. And that's really the essence is you'll never understand chiropractic as long as you think that health is the absence of pain or symptoms, or it's a state of feeling versus a state of functioning.
Wow, that's incredible. That's an awesome story.
Yep.
But, when you say that it wasn't this, the heavens parted and all that kind of stuff, but you said that within 6 weeks, you were back in the gym.
Yeah, but it was, I was in the gym, again, little pink green weights, it was a struggle. It was whereas before when I'd walk in the gym, every head would turn. Every head would turn. I use that in my workouts, because I'm squatting 600-700 pounds. Now it's like it's a struggle to pick up, little 5-pound dumbbells. And so it was a long ways back, but it was something I wanted to do because back then that was my thing,
Yeah,
couldn't wait to start lifting.
You probably lost so much of your muscle mass.
It came back awfully quick.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, I would say I started at that 6-week point, and I would say I was back to 90% of where I had been and about the 5th month.
Oh my God.
But also understand, I also had chiropractic now that I didn't have before. So I went far beyond what I'd done before.
Yeah. That is so huge. And you're the perfect person to carry the message. You know, you have experienced it. You can say it, you can speak it and feel it, and you know, like who better to take the torch and
Sure.
you know. So I am so grateful for you, for what you've created and all of your material and everything. Just because it's great work, and it's you do your research. Like what
Thank you.
all your material is backed by it just studies, and you're just taking quotes and important evidence. You know, it's
interesting. It's interesting that 25, 30 years ago, when I would put together a piece, it was a struggle to find enough to fill out the page or to fill out the report. You know, you're finding things that are maybe marginal just to fill the sheet. Now the challenge is there's too much.
Yeah.
I've got a new series. I don't know if I sent it to you. I got a new series. They're 1-page documents that called Health Issues. We got about 200 of them, and they can be used for newsletters, but used for handouts. Anyway, we did one on the relationship between heart health, cardiovascular health, and spinal health. And I had a couple of really nice citations. And I went, I'm gonna have to find a few more here. Gosh, I could have done 20 sheets. It was a challenge to know what to leave off.
Yeah.
And that's been, you know, to me, chiropractic is best understood and explained through baseline physiology. This is how the body works. This is how philosophically we look at it differently. You know, we see a sprained ankle and we think, good, that inflammation, that discoloration, that's the body healing. Let's facilitate that. Let's ensure a good nerve supply. Let's ensure a good nutrition versus let's alter the healing physiology to make the person feel better. Mm-hmm. It's just a different, but it comes back to that physiology.
Yeah. So you have a few businesses, but this is something that, I mean, it's great that you're able to work on this. I mean, you must really enjoy reading through all these things, because not a lot of people enjoy reading the studies. It's not easy to go through them.
No, and I have I'm not talented in a lot of things, but reading comprehension is one of them. I was tested at the University of Nebraska when I was a kid, and in fact, I was tested multiple times. And my reading speed and comprehension, I mean, literally is off the charts. Literally, you know, I'm not one of those speed readers, but I can go through in-depth thing awfully quick and absorb it. I can almost glance at the page and pick it up. And it's not a photographic memory. It's just I have a very fast reading comprehension, so I can get through things awfully quick.
That's awesome, because some of those studies, it's very important to understand them because of all the methodology, and then also so many of them are well, it's not that the studies are bad, it's just that some of them are, I think, in my experience or what I understand, are poorly written in that they're poorly written, and then they're it's just all that data, it's so dry, it's just like, oh my God.
And what I always do is I read the site, I read the full thing, and then I go down and I go through the citations piece by piece, and I'll usually end up reading 6 or 7 of those, or at least going to them and reading the abstract from those. And usually sometimes that leads to the next one, and sometimes you really find the meat in that third level citation, you know. And a lot of times, and again, some of this stuff is supports and validates chiropractic, and they weren't trying to. You know, I read, I get a couple of pain journals, and you think, oh, a chiropractic's not a pain thing, we're a subluxation thing. But without trying to, they're supporting the idea of spinal nerve interference and systemic health while they're talking about pain. I just came across a treasure trove of articles about whiplash and the effects on systemic health, and they weren't trying to demonstrate whiplash and systemic health, but damn, they did over and over and over and over. And now that's almost like a book waiting to be written. But I've written a few books, but I don't like write. People go, why don't you read more books? And I go, because I want people to read what I write. And let's face it, we're reading shorter and briefer, and there's a better chance of them reading one page than 250 pages. Yeah. If they can get the gist of it in that which is why I've always said journalists are your best writers on the planet. They only got 750 words, and they get their point across very, very quickly.
That's so awesome. I'm glad that you're really good at this because I'm not.
Well, but you know what? I don't know that I was naturally good. I remember the first time I did a large chiropractic conference, more than 30 people. I mean, I wet my pants before I went on stage. Not kidding, because I was drinking water because I was so nervous. I had cotton mouth. Ended up accidentally peeing my pants, and there's a whole story behind that. So you work at it. You just work at it, and I think I've gotten proficient at educating because I've done a lot of it, and I've educated in hostile environments. Your typical chiropractor really never ventures out of their comfort zone. They're talking to people in their office. They're over here. They're singing to the choir. I mean, I've lectured in places where there was fist fights waiting to happen in the parking lot afterwards. I've done lectures to parents where like the movie Roadhouse, where he comes out and the windows smash. I mean, I've had my tires slashed after doing lectures at different places. It doesn't really happen now, but in the first 10 years, quite a. And you know what? You get tough that way. You get good. I realized real quick that when delivering to the raw public, cliches and little cute sounding things, it may work in a room full of chiropractors, but in the raw public, forget it.
Yeah.
They want hard data, backed up by hard data, presented in a mentally digestible way that can be absorbed. So
yeah, that's pretty bold. That's great. Okay, because you had this experience with chiropractic before you had children, what was it like when you met your wife, and then your children?
I think our third date, second or third date, was her attending one of my workshops that I was doing at a guest.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So right from the get, like pretty soon.
Yes.
From early on, yeah. She got.
And I said, and we were distances apart. It was kind of a distance thing. Mm-hmm. And she said, you know what, I really should explore this. And I said, I know people in town. And she said, yeah, I'm gonna have to explore it. Well, funny thing was, literally the next day, she gets rear-ended in a car accident.
Oh, God.
Okay, well, I better go now. And I go, that's not the best reason to go, but at least. And she started, and yes, all of our kids, from birth, they've grown up on it. Even like my daughter, who's a psychiatric nurse, still puts into practice the principles of chiropractic. In fact, really great side story. I had a guy call me about 6 months ago, brand new chiropractor in practice, wanted to get my materials, and we're talking. And I said, let me ask you something. Tell me your story. Why'd you want to become a chiropractor? And he said, I was a baseball player, and I wanted to be like an athletic trainer. And I'm sitting in class one day in a nutrition class, and someone brought up chiropractic. And the instructor just totally dismissed it and said, you know what, it's a bunch of crap. He says, this girl sitting next to me, real pretty girl, stands up and says, excuse me, and literally backed the instructor down based on research. Just literally just started citing things over and over and over. He said in 2 minutes, the instructor went, I apologize. You know what? I misspoke. And so I talked to this girl afterwards, and she said, you know what? If you want to be an athletic trainer, you might as well be a chiropractor. Well, that was my daughter. It was actually the same university with him.
Oh,
and
awesome.
So even though she's not a chiropractor, she still puts it into play. And that's the thing. The chiropractic message transcends chiropractic. It's a way of it's a thought process, decision making, and I think that's true of all of my kids. So. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's enlightening to hear you say and explain that, you're not a chiropractor, but you just have become this advocate where you are living the chiropractic lifestyle, and then you bring that into your family life, and your children are doing what they're doing. I just think that's so.
And I've seen too much.
Yeah.
If it was just my story and my kids, I'd have probably, slowed down long ago. I've just seen too much. I regularly get calls and emails from people. I remember A guy grabbed me in an airport one time. Big guy, big bearded guy, about 300 pounds. I thought he was going to rob me. And he goes, "I know you." And I'm like, "Oh God, who is this?" Turned out he says, my mother brought me to an office that you were doing a lecture at when I was 2 years old, and I was this and I was that, and I had all this kind of stuff going on. And you told her I needed to be under care, and she brought me in. He goes, and long story short, this guy now played in the Canadian Football League professionally.
Awesome.
And now that's but I have thousands of I've seen too much to walk away from it, because there's times I've wanted to boy, this would be an easier life. I make good money and I just kind of do what I want, but I've seen too much to walk away from it. And even though there's a lot of issues with the profession and people in the profession, it doesn't change the fact that the principle is absolutely fantastic. It needs to be delivered to as many people as possible.
So do you feel that your confidence in being a father, like when you became a father, and then being so involved in the chiropractic lifestyle, did that give you more confidence, like more certainty about? Because I think that I'm just guessing. I think it's probably for men who don't really understand about how the body works. It's probably, I know that I've spoken to men who, when they saw their wife go through pregnancy and labor, and then the new baby is brand new, and men who don't understand how the body works or don't even think about that, they're not in the health industry. Just it's kind of scary, I would think. And, for you to have the certainty in the philosophy, in how the body works, it probably, did it give you more confidence, more, like just that resourcefulness?
Absolutely. And my wife as well, my kids as well, growing up, there's a lot of, I call it family peer pressure to do certain things and to adopt certain medical procedures. And I'm not this anti-medical guy. I'm really not. I don't, in my literature and even the stuff you don't see a lot of anti-medical. I'll explain the physiology of it. And, we've had our struggles with family members who said, you should be doing this or that. But they have kids that are sickly, that need chiropractic, that are given drugs the minute they sneeze and sniffle. And so I don't worry about it. I don't go on an intense in-your-face crusader. I'll have a conversation with anybody anytime. And you know what? If you don't choose that route, that's fine. I'm not gonna beat you up over it. And so yes, it's not. If you ask my kids, about where I was, I've tried to set the example on chiropractic versus shoving it down their face. And I've really only have one of my 6 that actually have picked up a green book and asked me about it and is interested in it. And I have people go, I'll bet half your kids are chiropractors or want to be. And I go, I don't know, not really. If they want to, that's great. If they don't want to, that's great too. I know they'll embrace it as part of their life. You don't have to be a chiropractor. And even just watching them grow up, I had one son that was born with a severe clubfoot. I mean, to the point where they said, he's going to be crippled. He's actually the one in the green books. And, we trusted the body. We trusted educated mind to do what we needed to do. There was one small surgery on his heel. We did the physical therapy. We did the things. We got him adjusted. Boy, he probably got adjusted as much as a kid ever needed to be. And you know what? He's fine. I mean, he plays sports, and I mean, if he gets a little tired, you can see him dragging the foot. But you would not know. And I've told that story before, and I've had people go, which kid is this? And I go, that one. They go, that one, not that one. I go, yeah, his twin sister. They were both born premature, and there was some issues with the birth, and they wanted to put her in a feeding tube. And my chiropractor came in the hospital over a holiday weekend and checked and adjusted both of them. And you know what? She is now the number 2 rated gymnast in her age group in the U.S. Does absolutely fantastic.
Wow.
And so they've just kind of grown up with it. It's like it's not a big deal. It's just who we are. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, like my kids.
Exactly.
Yeah, they don't know that it's not normal or it's not the norm To
It's like they
not.
say kids that grow up, I didn't mean to cut you off, but kids that grow up with like a famous dad or a famous like an actress or
Yeah.
a famous, they just assume everyone's
Yeah.
dad plays for the Lakers.
Yeah.
It's just no big deal. They're not wowed by it.
Right. Exactly. It's just mom. It's just dad. Okay. So how old are your kids now?
Oh, I don't have it written down, so I forget. Let me think.
Roughly.
I'm sitting here thinking like 30, 30, 27. No, I'm sorry. 30, 26, 30, 26, 24, 20, 13, 13.
Okay.
It's about close thing.
Cool. And so the fifth and sixth, they're twins.
Yes, boy and girl.
Oh, cool. That must have been a shocker.
That's what I'm just talking about. There was problems, there was complications. One had the leg, the club foot, the other's the gymnast. Yeah, that was a yeah. And then honestly, we had about a year later, we had another set of twins on the way, little girls, and we lost them like in the second or third month. Or I would have had 8. So
Yeah. Oh. And so how old was that's just twins to both last pregnancies. What do you think about that? Like, why do you think that's, I mean, there's theories about.
I think God has a sense of humor. That's what I think.
Yeah.
or I'm being punished for something. No, it's the twins. It's kind of like there's twice as much, but they keep each other company, so it offsets. Mm-hmm. If that makes any sense. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I don't know. I never thought much about it.
Yeah, I hear that as a woman gets older, like she'll release more than one egg or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows who said that? And so they're the two 13-year-olds. They're the only ones that are home now.
Correct.
Yeah. So when you had the twins, you must have been it must have been pretty easy. Well, I mean, I know that you said that so they were premature.
Lots of extra moms around the house.
Yeah.
Especially the older girls.
How many boys and girls do you have?
3 of each.
Oh, great. That must be nice.
And so my oldest was just about ready to leave, just about gone. And then second oldest was not far behind him, and so it was really just the 4 of us for most of the adult. And then as my oldest daughter got into college, she's lived with us all through college, and then graduated, got married, and went off to grad school. And we moved to Florida right after my middle daughter graduated high school, which was 2 years ago. And she's up in Charleston doing school, and she's actually rejoining us. She's actually coming back, and hopefully there's potentially an opening in the office that we're going to the chiropractor, and she's actually interviewing with them or in the process of, which would be really cool to have her working in an office. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Which one? You said the 13-year-old?
No, the 20-year-old.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. Oh, that's nice. That'll be great. Very good
It'd be
experience.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and what does your wife do?
Homemaker. We homeschool the kids as well.
Oh, really?
And so we homeschool, which she does most of it. She does 90%. Well, she's done most of it. We're now doing a lot of automated computer, and there's some co-op type stuff. She kind of facilitates that.
Yeah.
She's an accountant by trade, but she has not worked in that field since the twins were born.
Yeah.
And she takes care of the books with the materials and all that kind of stuff, all the ordering, things like that, as well as just the financing of some of the other businesses as well. So
that's awesome. Homeschooling. Hats off to you. That's really incredible. I think that it's so special to have the ability to homeschool your children.
It is, and it's expensive, and it's a commitment. It's like a lot of things in life. It evens out. Mm-hmm. There's sacrifices to be made. There's blessings to be reaped, and they sort of equal each other out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times I wish they were out of here. I wish that I have an office at home. I wish they were gone. I wish they were in school somewhere. Smoking in the bathroom so I could sit and get some work done, because we have a crazy house at times. And we have 3 miniature wiener dogs, which are the spoiled kids of our house, and so we have a lively house.
Yeah, I heard the ears flapping. The dog,
Yeah,
like at least one of your dogs was in the room, like shaking. It was
yeah.
really
We
cute.
had my youngest son's playing in a chess tournament. My daughter's home, and then my wife had a bunch. It's like the gardening day, and so she hired workers to come in and put mulch down, all kind of stuff. Well, these dogs they're barking. I was actually worried they were going to bark more, but they've actually been pretty good.
Yeah, I love dogs. Um, wow. Okay, so I this is a question that I've been asking all the men. Well, like just sort of trying to get to the question. So because it's an interesting thing for me because I think it's very different for women. So being a father, do you think it's more a mental decision or a mental thing than an emotional feeling thing?
Ask that another. I'm not sure what you mean. I think I
So
know, but I want to.
the men that I've had conversations with about fatherhood or becoming a father, the way they talk about it, the way men talk about it, it's to me, the way I interpret it when I look at it like, okay, well, it sounds very mental. It sounds very cerebral, like just a mental discussion. It's not, and then the choice of becoming a father is not really emotional. So,
I think it's more emotional than it is anything. I think the decision is emotional driven. Then once you've made that emotional decision, then the other side of the brain kicks in and you start saying, okay, well, how's this going to work? How many, when, how are we going to do things? You got a plan, in a sense. But I think it's largely an emotional decision.
okay, interesting. And is that how you did it? Like, did you think, okay, I want to have as many kids as possible, or I want to have, or how did it, like, for you? Because
I
that's,
probably intellectually would have wanted less and emotionally wanted more. My wife just loves kids and big families and all that. And we have when we lived in Charleston, and we had the house full. My daughter married a young man who's the oldest of 9, and so they were always over. And in our house in the neighborhood back then, when we were a little more committed to the homeschool movement back in Charleston, I mean, kids were always coming over. We'd have, it was nothing to have 10 or 12 kids at dinner table any night, and they were just comfortable with us. They'd come over, they'd pitch in and help cook meals, pitch in and help cook, food, sometimes bring food. And we wanted that to be a safe haven, for the neighborhood kids. And we haven't really established that in Florida just because it's less kids. And we have it right now with my daughter's gymnastics thing, but we live a little ways away from that. And we're hoping to eventually foster that. And which is why I'm trying to talk my wife into, we have a formal dining room that we just never use, in the kitchen. So I said, you know what, we really should take the table out of that and turn it into a billiards room, because that would attract people, and she's not too fond of that. No, we did some degree of planning.
Yeah.
I would have probably stopped at 4 without the twins.
yeah,
And mine was more, economically driven. Can I afford this?
I see.
Because when we had the twins, she stopped her job. She quit her job, and I actually kind of entered some new. I had to take on some new to work. I had to make more money, basically.
Yeah.
I had to replace her income, and it scared me.
yeah,
And she's kind of it'll all work out. I'm like, no, let's plan and make sure it'll work out. I'm not the type that say, you know what, I'm going to drive to New York City from here, and I've only got $50 for gas. It'll work itself out. No, I'm going to make sure I have enough gas money. And so we're kind of opposite in that. I like to plan, I like to coordinate, but at the day, it was very much an emotional decision.
cool, yeah. Yeah, well, then maybe my interpretation is not accurate. It's just the way
I think it's very individual. I think it's very individual.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, that you're right. That's true. It definitely is. So when your wife was pregnant for the first time with your first child, what was there something that like clicked? Was there something that was the reason why I'm asking is because my younger brother, he just got married recently, and they're expecting, and it's just, and I've had friends as well who have I've seen the guy go through this sort of like this shift. And it's really interesting to see. I mean, just like a woman goes through this metamorphosis, this type of shift, it's definitely different than what a man goes through. So do you remember experiencing that sort of something that I'm talking about?
No, it was just matter of fact. I'll kind of, but again, I think that's personality driven, and I'll tell you why. Back when I was in the Navy, and sailors get their reputation is it was well earned, and so most of my friends were out partying. I mean, you got to work, and you really do your work out at sea. You come in, you don't have to do you work 10 hours a week maybe. So there's a lot of partying, a lot of running around. Just never did that. Never did it in high school. It was get up, do chores, go to school, work all day in school, then get out, practice whatever sport, come home, do more chores and homework. It was just a very, I don't want to say a rigid, but a very, there wasn't a lot of partying, so to speak. And I never did it in high school, never drank in high school, never did drugs, never did any of that. And the Navy, same thing. I mean, I get up, go to work, get out of work, go to college somewhere, come home, work out. I was on this routine. And so when marriage and kids came along, it was just a different way of it. It wasn't like I had to stop my wild bachelor, lifestyle. In fact, being that bachelor, was really kind of lonely. And so to me, there was little uneasiness about it. And I've seen guys who live the wild life, who do their own thing, and all of a sudden they gotta grow up and get married and have kids, and it's a shock to them, and it's a shock they never really get over. And so to me, I think it's very much the DNA of the individual.
Yeah, it's definitely individual. Yeah, that's okay. That's interesting that it was just something that you were prepared for. It was in your mindset.
Like getting your driver's license. You study the manual and you go. You read the books and you just go.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And I'll tell you, since you haven't asked me yet, it's a rough question to ask.
Yeah.
If there's dads listening, or potential dads, the best thing, and this isn't my advice. This is the advice I was given, and it's true. There's two parts to it. Number one, the best thing you can do for your kids, the very best thing you can do, is to love their mother. Love her unconditionally. Love her even when it's not deserved. Demonstrate that love. And by the way, that doesn't mean hugging and kissing. That means helping out. That means serving. That means serving with a glad heart. It means sacrificing when it's painful to sacrifice. And then the second part of that is, guys, you want a good home life, keep the women in your life happy. Your daughters, your mom. I tell my sons that. Hey, we got to keep the girls happy, because we can be happy regardless. But if we can keep the women happy, we keep the mothers and the aunts and stuff like that. You know what? Life just falls into place. And I said even at Thanksgiving, the guys are laid back. It's the women that are, and you know what? They have more responsibilities. There's more open windows. They got to do this and that. And so if we can just help them with that, if we can keep them happy, everything's fine. But you love their mother. You love her unconditionally. And love, again, isn't always candy, flowers, and hugs and kisses. It's demonstrating that. It's doing without any kind of a need to be looked up to or acknowledged. You do it just because you do it.
That was going to be my question, like my last question, and that you just totally nailed it. That is probably the best advice that I've heard. That is so brilliant. It's so true.
It's just good. It's just pragmatic. Like, and I'll give an example. When my wife's parents show up, and they don't live far from us, they live an hour from us, and we kind of moved down here to be able to be around them. This is going to sound like I'm stereotyping, but it's like my father-in-law needs very little to make him happy. My mother-in-law needs a lot to make her happy. And that's, again, it's a broad, but the same is true. Keep the women happy. Yeah. Love your wife. Love her when there has been times I remember coming home from work when I was working an actual job, and I'd be tired and everything was planned. It was a certain thing, and I had a football game we already planned this, and I walk in, and it's, when you pull up in the driveway, you're in trouble before you even step in the house. And you step into that house, and it's chaos that was probably self-inflicted, and you go, okay, time out. You know what? My agenda, set it aside. I'm going to devote the next hour, hour and a half to serving in whatever capacity I got to serve. And you know what? I'll succeed in the long run. I'll succeed in the long run. And I didn't have to do that a lot. We don't do it now at all. But when we had a lot of kids at the house, we certainly had to. Oscar's barking at the gardener, so
no
he's been
problem.
pretty good so far.
He has no problem. That is just because that's such a simple piece of advice, because there's not really that much. There's nothing complex about that. It's.
No.
I can't challenge that. It's so true.
I routinely, and I don't do it for any other reason to do it. I routinely, wife's had a tough day, or not even a tough day. Just I know she's put in the hours, and she's taken a shower, a bath, and while she's in there, I sneak into her closet, and I take the white fluffy towel and the white fluffy robe, and I throw them in the dryer for 5 minutes.
Oh my
God. And I hear the shower go off. I hang up that white robe and that towel right outside the hook. So when she grabs it, it's this nice, hot, warm. You know what? Yeah. For no other reason than she deserves that. She's a mom and not looking for anything other than just stuff like that. And if you asked her, she'd rather have that thoughtfulness than candy, flowers, or even though she loves candy and flowers. But just those thoughtful things done almost as part of a habit. I bring her coffee every single morning in bed, because I'm up early, and there's just a whole routine, and it's part of serving, and that's something I've tried to teach my kids: the joy of serving. You don't serve to get. There's joy in it, and even in I've seen people in menial jobs that just love serving, and if you have a menial job, learn to love serving, and you'll grow out of that menial job. I think that's why some chiropractors feel they really don't enjoy serving. They want to get something. You get because of what you're doing, what you're providing, not the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. I love serving.
Yeah.
I love it. It's who I am. It's part of my purpose in life, my being. So yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. And I think that it goes both ways, with in terms of you serving your wife, so to speak, what you're saying. I think that it goes both ways. It definitely, because if you are doing something unconditional out of the unconditional love that you have for her, and you are serving, all those little things, like just bringing her coffee to bed every morning. That's actually really super cool. I'm sure that she is also reciprocating in a different way to
completely different
who you
ways.
are. Yeah.
Completely different ways. Completely. It's not those little things done because I need. She needs more. I hate to use the word validation. She needs more of those reinforcements than I do. I don't know. But it's in completely. Yeah. And again, we don't do those things for the reciprocal. They just happen. They just happen naturally. But the fact that she gets up every day, cooks, takes care of the kids, does things, takes care of stuff. It's just all part of all part of serving each other, serving the family.
It makes me think about how there's such a huge difference in how it's okay. How when you choose to serve like that, you are really choosing to be honorable and respectful, and you're just living your life as a man, as a do you know what I mean? Like there's
sure, if you seek happiness in consuming, it'll never be enough. Which is why, to me, you should pursue peace and joy and contentment versus happiness, because happiness is an emotion. It comes and it goes. And so to me, there's incredible joy and peace in serving others, even serving others that are total strangers, versus consuming, because you can never consume enough. It's never enough. You just want more and more and more and more.
Yeah. I just love that. I wish more people would just take on that philosophy, because we're so, especially nowadays, we just so quickly want.
Yeah, we want stuff.
Yeah,
we think stuff will make us happy.
Yeah, I mean, the quicker the better. It's just we can't get it quick enough.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, but I was going to get to that question. What kind of advice would you give to a young father or but you said it perfectly. That was awesome. And it's great advice.
And that's on top of providing, that's on top of protecting, that's on top of all the things that, honestly, if you do them and do them well, you don't get any credit for it. You're supposed to do that. You're supposed to provide. You're supposed to raise. You're supposed to, if you need to watch the kids so the wife can go out and do something, you don't get bonus points for that. That's part of what you do. It's part of your responsibility.
That's awesome.
And you should have fun doing it.
Yeah. Of course, for sure. And of course, it comes with being a father and raising a family and having so many children. And you are so qualified to say how it's never perfect.
Of course not. That's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. But the joy and what you get back is like, there's no number. Yeah.
Correct.
That's awesome.
Correct.
Well, Keith, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. Sure. And I had a really good time.
I did too.
Yeah. And it was really great to finally meet you because I went to Life and I feel like, have you spoken at DE before?
Oh yeah, probably 15 or 20 times at least.
Wow. That's probably when I first, because I went to DE all the time when I was a student and then just after I graduated. But that's probably like the first time because you said you've been doing this for 30 years?
Correct. 30. Wow. I'm in my 31st year right now.
Okay. Yeah, because I graduated in 97.
Yeah, I was doing DE when it was down at the Waverly and back when they were having 3,000 people and back when Dr. Fred Barge was still around, we did a lot of co-lectures together, not just at DE, but around the country for a time. Mm-hmm. And so it's gotten to that point, I'm one of the old timers now. I always still think of myself as this kid in chiropractic, and, now we're the silverbacks, so to speak. So Rob Sinton and I, who's a good friend, we talk about that a lot. We go, we're not the kids anymore. We're like the grown-ups in the profession. So. Yeah.
And it is true. Like I feel like I've been practicing for 20 years, or this is my 21st year, and it's like I still walk around feeling like I'm this. I don't know. It's funny, but like I see the younger students or the younger chiropractors, and it's like, whoa, like I am so much more experienced. Like I've been around. Like I know. So it's like I'm entering into this level of mastery. But yet sometimes I catch myself feeling, like I'm back as this student. Just kind of that young spirited, young doctor. So.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Keith. And
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, this is really, really great. And I'm so glad that I heard your story. That's amazing.
Glad to share.
To find out more about Keith's work in chiropractic and to contact him, please check out his website, keithwassung.com. That's KEITHWASSUNG.com. You can also connect with him on Facebook in his name. Keith's products are brilliant, and his endless service and dedication to the chiropractic profession is just amazing and inspiring. Go check it out. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it, and I'd appreciate it so much if you write me a review on iTunes. Go ahead and check out my website, yourdoinggreatmom.com. I'd like to tell you about a new program I've created. I'm about to launch my pilot course on mother and baby health. It's the pilot course, so it's only £25 for this whole pilot course. You get 6 months of support, information about the how-tos on baby health, the whys, how to cope when you're completely clueless about what is happening to you, your baby, and your new life as a mom. Jump on and let me help you figure this mom life stuff out. Check it out on my website, yourdoinggreatmom.com. All right, guys, thanks for listening. I am Dr. Marianne Shiozawa, and I'll be back with another man for my next episode, sharing his story about fatherhood. Stay tuned.